I would consider it.
I never thought right there with the
He Lyons said, this is what we're acting. I'm going to buy one of these things. Kurt Manor, he's got a policeman.
Well, they get me too. I'm going to get them in return. Well, I did get Scott, or I got a dog.
We're going to get started here. Greg, you're good? All right. Welcome everybody to the Princeton Public Utilities Commission's meeting, May 24th, 2023 at 1 o'clock. We have a roll call, but we do have just given notice that Commissioner Dan Erickson has an emergency. So please recognize that, Mr. Butcher, in your roll call. And with that said, do you have a completed roll call?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda as written?
I have no additions on the consent agenda. This doesn't have to be pulled off or anything, but the revenues on. I'm not even sure everyone cares as it is. Does that little segue into our official business depository?
No.
Then I have approval.
Before we proceed with that, I do have a question, and maybe the proper way is to just continue through the agenda and address them at that time, or I'll just mention that with Commissioner Erickson gone, it may reflect the outcome of 6E and 6F. There really hasn't been a lot of discussion on either one of those. So we would have an option to postpone that, or we can proceed, but we may have a split vote depending upon. So I would entertain a feeling, Commissioner Edmonds, to wait till we have 3 commissioners present.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to we want to discuss E and F.
E and F.
Just go ahead and take one. And neither one of the times I did it by there.
They're important, but I think it's really important that there's 3 commissioners here discussing what the bylaws and policies of the PPU commissioner base is, as well as well, in the holding, I asked for a presentation of RBC Wealth Management, and he was not available for this day. So if we could get the representation of RBC Wealth Management for our next meeting, and we can proceed with 6E and F at our next meeting.
So I do have to point out, we are on the topic of the consent agenda. If we want to discuss any of the items, that's why we have it on the agenda. So
no, we are not. We are with the approval of the agenda, not the consent.
You should have done that with the approval of the agenda.
So this is where I'm talking about the approval of the agenda. I'm still on number 2.
I guess the question from the commission is, do you want to have any conversation at all about 6E and 6F or not?
Okay, with that said, then I am going to not approve the agenda as written and make a motion to eliminate 6E and F until next meeting, and I'll make that as a motion.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Please strike E and F from today's meeting. Public comments. Anybody present or informed us of any comments?
No, sir.
Not hearing any, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any question on that?
I just got rebuilt there.
I'm sorry, yes, I got it.
I turned out my question. My fault.
Yeah,
Good answer. So,
you're fine.
my question was answered, so I'll move approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a first, and I will second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed. Updates, Mr. Linden.
Yes, Commissioner, since the last meeting, we had a pre-construction meeting yesterday for our phase 1 of our capital improvements plan. Feel that went well. It sounds like they are going to be starting first part of June. I think June 5th was maybe a date thrown out there. It's a preliminary starting date. We'll see how that goes. The material has been arriving for that. The lead times seem to be holding, from what I've been told. Some of the transformer basements did get pushed back. The manufacturer had the press that makes the basements went down. That got pushed back till the week of June 9th or the week after that, which I don't think will impact the project significantly. The guys were out and changed out. We've received 2 shipments of transformers, another one come in today. So they have changed out the dual volt transformers for that first part of the project that we're going to be starting. They're out doing the last one right now. So those were changed out ahead of the project. So when we get there, they're all ready to go. We had some MUA training. They got the sticks and grounds all tested out for the next year. Well, that's emergency right to know where program, place and injury reduction, stuff like that. And yesterday we had a vehicle strike the transformer behind the Dollar Tree, which cut the service lines out of the Dollar Tree at about, we have to call it about 3 o'clock. So we were able to patch that back together and get them up and running shortly, just right before 5. And getting that worked out with the parties that need to be involved with that. So other than that, it's been just business as usual. Other than that, so gearing up for the project. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Linden. Mr. Schmidt.
Power plant side, been quiet for this event, so that's good. We got exercise runs coming up tomorrow and then Monday. Look, next few days here, we're going to get monthly runs in. Working on gathering quotes for the roof replacements over the boiler room and the units 6 and 7. Working on that, getting some quotes in there. Got one in, working on, supposedly the second one's coming in, but it's been kind of like pulling teeth just to get people the quotes and stuff. So we also did have the league out and did an assessment of all of our stuff. Kind of a follow up from last year's damage. It just got late in the year last year, and they were busy, so they were out. Did an inspection on all the facilities, as far as for hail damage or any of that type of stuff. Was kind of the main thing we looked at, and everything looked good. So
Great.
we don't nothing there coming up. So water side, we got the spring flushing completed. The patch up on 7th Avenue is finally done, so that's back to smooth. Middle tower's back in service. Meters changeouts been going slow here and there. We're getting a onesie twosie type deal, but it's just keep picking away out of us people who are making appointments. Fair amount of sprinkler turn-ons or irrigation systems for the bigger complexes there. I think we finally got the last. I think we got 2 left, and I think we're wrapped up with them for the spring. So last week I spent a day at the high school doing a little presentation with it was chemistry class there. So Kurt from Rural Water helped me out on that deal. Went through we did 5 classrooms worth of presentation stuff there with the kind of the whole covered a lot of different stuff, kind of a brief overview, but we went through a bunch of different topics on wellhead protection, how the system works, kind of a little bit of everything, so.
Yeah.
And then we had, just in a few bell boxes for some projects there for some stuff on the industrial park, and then we had a couple other repair ones that everything got fixed back up and get paved roads, so.
Talk about starting water sprinklers, if there are certain prices you got here.
We do shut offs in the fall for them, so they'll call in and request a shut off for usually in the kind of the outbuildings that have the sprinkler system set up in there, we shut them off.
Like commercial places?
Yes, the townhome associations,
So you
yeah, the park stuff, but quite a few for the city with the parks and that type of stuff there, where they're not in a winterized area, so we shut them down. And then they come and winterize the system, and then spring they come back and turn it back on, so.
got in, you guys did that, I do my own.
Yeah, well, where it's more they're tight, where they're not not in a heated environment, is where they come into a lot of the townhome associations. They're just out in a little garden shed that everything comes up into. So,
You know, I didn't know. The way that I thought they maybe had your commercial companies like Greenscape or whatever.
they do take care of them, and then they coordinate with us too, essentially for the winterization. Then we can shut off the service going there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Office Department updates, anytime.
Yes, so we had a busy beginning portion of the week. We did have some disconnections. This was our first disconnection after the cold weather season, or cold weather season. So it was a little busier than usual, but the new team handled it really well. It was pretty flawless in the office, which was nice to see. Our billing clerk has also designed a process to where we're able to offer budget billing on a monthly basis now, as long as we have a history, so it's not just once a year, we do this continuously throughout the year, which I think will make things a lot easier and a little bit better for the customers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've also been working with ADP on some payroll, potentially having them do our payroll for us. So with our bookkeeper and myself, we've been working with them, asking questions to make sure that we could transition if we choose to. And other than that, it's day-to-day projects that we work on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Jack, it looks like you might be up for the city update.
Yeah. Michelle had received the memo and he got it to me. And 5 items here. Well, starting out, there is not a lot to report, but here's the highlights. Pre-construction meeting for the Princeton Business Park infrastructure has been scheduled for June 1st at 1 p.m. That's every day. Okay, groundbreaking for Glen Metalcraft at noon on June 1st. And we did that whole schedule.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of events going on, but it must be the actual shovel in the ground that we get. The mayor is going to speak at 11:45, but
Yes, sir.
and work is starting soon on replacing the beacon at the airport. One of the bigger projects going on out there right now is also a automated weather system that has to be updated. A lot of work, and I think they're pretty grateful that working with our auditor now. It's all what I've heard. I think they're doing well. And then an item, last item here is a joint meeting in Mille Lacs County with the county board, which doesn't really affect us. Me and the council, it does, but more hands-on with that. It's going to be between all the jurisdictions, cities, and townships. I guess it's just kind of a outreach kind of a thing, I guess, to be more hands-on with everybody in the county. On May 30th at 4 o'clock, I plan on going to it. I don't think it doesn't really affect us directly with the city issue. It's better communication, which I think is hopefully a move in the right direction. Historically, it has not been very good.
So what, that's me.
May 30th at 4 o'clock.
And that's
And it's,
open to who?
that's public, and, well, it's between the city, the townships. So I know I'm going, but there may be a forum there from the city. It's gonna be published. But some of the townships, I'm sure will have, board members who would like it there. I would imagine it's open to the public. It's a special county board meeting, and they're open to the public. Doesn't say that here, but it would get it.
That's at City Hall.
No, it'll be at the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
At the old court,
Okay.
their main meeting. At 4 o'clock on May 30th. Yeah. I know one thing Michelle mentioned when she brought it up at the last council meeting, like going west here, that's 29 now, right, or 31 First Street, County Road, 95. And they're looking at the intersection, Walmart intersection, to make improvements there. I don't know, four-way stop would be good, but I think there is a minute roundabout possibly. It's a state aid funded road. Would be my suggestion. That's one item that I'm aware of that we're gonna have, the city is gonna be looking at.
Would the PPU have any interest in attending that?
I wasn't planning on it.
I'll be there as well.
Yeah.
See where an old hat needs to be one. But
So you can wear more than a couple
I've
hats.
been doing that for a while.
Yeah. I know, so you're a good person to send. Any questions for Commissioner Edmonds? If not, thank you, Jack. General Manager update, Mr. Butcher.
Yes, sir. So following up on the South Substation failure, we did file an insurance claim with Travelers. We filed a claim of total losses for $29,300 approximately. We do have a deductible on our substation coverage at $25,000, so we did net an insurance claim of about $4,300 for the incident with the CBT failure. So that's all been processed. On the energy efficiency side, we did issue rebates to Quetzal Products. They installed 2 separate 500-ton all-electric injection molding machines. That rebate was $33,660. We continue to move forward on our air permit process. Did find out that St. Peter's air permit has been going through smoothly, is what I'm hearing. So the situation in Glencoe seems to be isolated to that plant. That's a good indicator for us. We're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that our air permit goes through as smoothly as St. Peter's has been reported to be handled. There was a simple board meeting on May 10th. There were several items there that I thought were particularly important to bring to the Commission's attention, so I'll go through each of those. We did have a presentation by PFM Financial Advisors to really look at the appropriate cash reserve levels given the new ECA rate structure that was implemented. Prior to the ECA implementation, if one adjusted for inflation, the 2023 target for Simpl's cash reserves would have been $58 million. PFM's new 2023 target projects that Simpa needs $49.5 million. Simpa currently has $49 million in their cash reserves. So the ECA did eliminate several risk areas for Simpa, which allowed for the cash reserve requirements to drop. Simpa's last Fitch rating, which was in 2021, was AA with 245 days of cash on hand, which places them among some of the top JAAs in the country. The transmission charge billing ratchet discussion happened as well. This ratchet was established pre-MISO under a different cost allocation structure. Simpa's costs are no longer driven by an annual coincident peak. Rather, it is driven by monthly coincident peaks. Simpa has been exploring switching to this new rate structure. Their latest analysis using 2022 data is that Princeton, if Simpa had built on a monthly CP instead of an annual CP, would have experienced a 0.5 to 0.6 reduction in annual wholesale electric costs, about $21,000 to $26,000 per year. but there are some utilities that have experienced an increase. So since the board does have an ongoing interest in making sure that costs and revenues line up better, they continued the conversation on that, but they also understood the negative impacts that the change would have on some members as a result. The discussion was phasing in the transition over a 3-year period to go from annual peaks to monthly peaks. Since everybody was on board with it, and in particular the member who was impacted the most negatively did support it. The board voted unanimously with no objections from the full membership to adopt the new transmission structure starting in 2024. And like I said, that'll phase it over a 3-year period. So that wholesale billing rate structure will change. SIPA is also currently evaluating an EV charging incentive that would be passed through to customers that charge at home during non-peak hours. If they're able to put something together, it may require participating members to offer a time of use residential rate in order to take advantage of that incentive. This is still preliminary. SIPA is looking at a few ideas, but they don't have a proposal at this time. But again, it kind of gets to looking at time of use rates and pricing energy more with what it costs at that time. Well, we also covered the Quick Start Agreement extensions. There are several SIPA Quick Start Agreements expiring at the end of 2023, including ours. We currently have 4.9 megawatts under the contract. And if SIPA wishes to extend that contract, the extension notice deadline is June 30th of this year. Current market capacity prices support SIPA extending the contracts at the current levels. So the board voted unanimously to offer participants a 5-year extension at the current $3 per kW month rate. And so the staff will work to get out the extension notices to all the impacted members. I don't have our letter yet, but I expect to get that in the next couple of weeks. SIPA is also continuing to explore an additional 12 megawatts of new quick start agreements. We have shared our interest in evaluating potential options. 5 other members have also voiced interest, so that work continues as well. On the legislative side, the Minnesota Competitiveness Fund was signed by the governor on April 18th, which allocated state matching funds for the IIJA and IRA grants, allowing the state to move forward in accessing those federal dollars. Anticipation is that a new round of IIJA applications will be accepted this fall. Princeton is monitoring the situation to see if there are additional funds we can access for our cap plan. SIPA is offering a member orientation, their SIPA 101 again, probably sometime next month. They're hoping to offer a virtual option. As soon as I get more details, I will share that with the commission. SIPA is also working on developing a notification system with members in the event that emergency protocols are implemented, which can range from generation to voluntary load reductions to rolling blackouts. So we're keeping in the loop with staff on that issue with the upcoming summer loads projected. Sherco 3 is also expected to resume commercial operations before June 1st. So that the work on Sherco 3 has gone through just fine. And then the only other really big thing is negotiations on service territory annexations with East Central is continuing. As soon as I have something, I will share that with the commission. It's my report.
And thank you, Mr. Booker. Okay. Item 6A, SIPA Energy Efficiency Rebate Program Update. Kelly, something like that. Welcome.
Thanks. I'll just go over all the different parts of the work I do here, and you can ask any questions if you have any. Primary reason I work in this job is to make sure Princeton makes the savings goals that they're required to do by the state. And you're going to make it easily this year. I don't see any problem. One of the things that's helpful in the way we run the program is we don't just look at savings in 1 year. So if you exceed savings in 1 year, you get to carry it over to the next year. And we had some big projects with plastic products, and So came into 2023 with some good carryover. Last year, 61 different projects were approved. Majority of it's lighting still, but we're doing some good work with plastic products because they're an industrial facility. We do leak checks, compressed air leak checks. We've done all these plastic injection, all electric injection molding machines are custom. So big customer, but big rebate projects as well. We also want to try to get more low-income energy efficiency projects going. Got a lot of irons in the fire on that. There's multifamily units here in Princeton that might be able to benefit from something. We're talking to the mobile home parks to see if they would be interested in working on a project with us. And then also there's the CAP agencies that have like a home inspection, and if they identify different equipment that home could replace and save energy, we look to support that. Trade allies, I do a lot of work to reach out to all the contractors that either put in HVAC equipment or lighting, just make sure they're aware of the rebates, and if they have any questions, and then, you know, it's nice if they can bring leads to us versus us missing those. We've got 16 contractors that I know of right now that I'm got on my contact list. Work with the chamber. Seems like every year we have a different activity with the chamber. This year we did a podcast to talk about the utility and rebate programs. Web page stories, we call them the big checks. We do those in the spring and the fall, and just try to catch any kind of project, keep it diverse, so there's lots of things people can see, and the goal being if they see that project, maybe they'll do it themselves. Energy Star, that's a big residential program. It means if you get a new refrigerator, you should get Energy Star certified. If you get a new window AC, if you get, you know, new clothes washer, if you get new light fixtures, all those that are Energy Star certified, they get some money back on that. And part of it is getting the awareness up. I stop by all the big box stores. I stop by the local appliance dealers and give them, you know, the information and rebate forms so that they can just hand them out to the customers if it helps the customer, you know, apply. Holiday lights, we rebate that and try to do it kind of as a nice holiday thing. If a person buys LED holiday lights, we give a rebate. The other residential program is called the Be Bright program, and that's from October through December. And we have a retailer in town, I think it's been the grocery store right now. And what we do is we basically subsidize the bulbs and they sell them super cheap, like, you know, 50 cents a bulb. And it goes on for like 3 months, and we do a lot of advertising, things like that, but it's a really good residential program. The good thing is, it is a good program, but the kind of the good news, bad news is that we won't have that program after 2023 because it's going to be standard. So there really isn't a way we can claim savings from that. Public Power Week. In Princeton, we always support Public Power Week with additional, like, you know, gift basket. We have a hazard hamlet that can be used to educate the public on health and safety issues with power lines. I go to the office meetings, the morning meetings on Tuesday once a month. I get together with staff and talk about things, and I learn what's going on in the office. Lastly, I was just going to say we're constantly trying to develop new rebate programs, and quite a few this year. So I'm just going to go through those. The first one is high efficiency fans and pumps. The manufacturers it'd be more industrial, maybe some commercial pumps. They now have a rating like fan efficiency indicator index, pump efficiency index. Now you can get, if you get one that's more efficient than the average, you can get, you'll save energy and you get a rebate. I have yet to get one of those out. Walk-in freezers. there's a lot of technology to control those better. And I have been able to give those, we make it very easy with the prescriptive rebate. It's called a demand defrost controls. And this was kind of fun. Energy Star coffee brewers. I'm waiting to see when we can get one of those. They're mostly for commercial businesses. And I'm learning that the brewers are pretty expensive and we give a $50 rebate. So it'll be interesting. But hopefully we can get some and get the word out. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And another thing is something called a heat pump clothes dryer. Most people don't know what that is. Another term they use at the stores is called a ventless. So it doesn't vent the air outside your house. You can get them at all the retailers. They probably won't have them on the floor, but you can order them. Cold climate air source heat pumps. That's one that is the best. I mean, we see a lot of mini splits, but there also are cold climate air source heat pumps that can heat and cool an entire home. It hasn't really taken off in Princeton because most residents have gas, and so it's a kind of it can be kind of a cost issue that it's going to be cheaper yet to heat with gas. And the last thing is heat pump water heaters, and that can be kind of confusing too for people. It's an electric water heater that uses refrigerant to heat the water. Haven't seen any in Princeton yet, but we might start seeing some interest as people get to understand it. It's a pretty good rebate. It can be like $400 per water heater. So, and that's all I got. If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
So for the water heater, with that program, that's a ventless water heater then, since it uses?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a little refrigeration unit right on top of the tank, so it makes the whole, it's a storage tank water heater. It makes it a little taller.
And then with the heat pump for the dryer,
yeah,
and with no venting, where does the heat and moisture go with no venting? I asked this because I was in the appliance business for 25 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
So that's an oddity to not vent out.
I know.
But, so you may find that interesting, or an interesting question to ask whoever that might be.
Yeah. Thanks.
Because when you start deleting the venting from these two entities that you mentioned, now the air exchanger that goes into the C5 homes may not need to be that high. You know, as you're,
oh, yeah, yeah, the heat recovery.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good that those things are there, but I'm looking at what happens because of that now. What
Yeah.
else is changing?
Yep.
So it could be a trickle-down effect into.
Right.
It's always so often when we change one thing, it's just not that one thing. It has side effects to it.
Yeah.
But that's the way we accomplish things, by moving forward and trying to do the best we can. So thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, yeah. That's great.
Anything else? Appreciate your time, Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah.
PD Water Comprehensive Study, WSB. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Christensen. I'm with the Water Wastewater Group at WSB, so we work on drinking water and sanitary sewer systems. And I'm here today to talk to you about your comprehensive water system plan. You know, the goal of these plans is to, well, they have a few components. We want to take an inventory of your existing system, look at your historical water demands and project out what we think the future water demands will be, and then evaluate the system and identify any improvements that need to be made to meet those future demands. So Keith, if you can go to the next slide here. Oops. You could go back one more. Yeah. So just a quick overview of your system, and I'm sure you're already familiar, but you have your 3 wells. Well number 7 next door here at water treatment plant number 1. And then you have wells 8 and 9 at water treatment plant number 2 down on the south side of the system. And then you have your three water towers, north, middle, and south. It sounds like the middle just came back online here recently. And then you have your water distribution mains, and those range in size from 4 inches up to as large as 20-inch diameter. So I included just the last 5 years of water demand data in the table here, and you'll see more of this data in the plan. But on average, over the last 10 years, you used about 500,000 gallons per day, and on a maximum day demand, like on a hot day in the summer when people are running their sprinkler systems, slightly over 1 million gallons per day. And just one note there, on the comparison between the average day demand and the max day demand. Oftentimes we'll take the max day demand divided by the average day demand to get your max day peaking factor. And in your case, that's right around 2. And that's pretty good. The DNR's target for those peaking factors is 2.6, so you're well below that. And I've seen other communities that are up around 3, as high as maybe 3.5 for a peaking factor. So, that's a good sign. It means you're not using an excessive amount of water on those max days. And then this table also includes our projections for 2030 and 2040. So this plan was looking into the future out through 2040, and your population served currently is just over 5,000, and we're projecting that by 2040 it may increase to as much as 6,600. And at that point in time, your average day demand would be roughly 700,000 gallons per day, and your max day demand would be a little bit over 1.4 million gallons per day. And just for a little background on that population projection, we worked with our planning group and then also the city's planning department to project out population growth that we thought was reasonable based on your historical trends. So we use those water demand projections, looking out into the future, to analyze your system capacity. So we're analyzing your supply, your treatment, and your storage facilities. So this first chart here is your supply and treatment facility. So this is your 3 wells and your 2 water treatment plants. And the bottom line that you see there in orange, that's the maximum day demand, or the increase in the maximum day demand that we're projecting out through 2040. And so you can see that, gradually increasing over the next couple decades. And then the blue line in the middle is your well firm capacity. And that's that firm capacity is referring to the total capacity of all of your wells, but with the largest well out of service. So in your case, that'd be well number 9 out of service. And the reason we do that is to be conservative in case you had to have that well out of service for regular maintenance or for some emergency condition. And then the top line that you see there in gray is your treatment capacity. So the conclusion from this chart is that the projected maximum day demand is not expected to exceed your well firm capacity or your treatment capacity within the lifespan of this plan. So we're not expecting you to need new wells or new water treatment plants before 2040.
Does that include water tower?
No, so that'll be on the next slide here. And so the storage analysis is a little bit more complicated for a couple reasons. So I guess first, just to describe the chart there on the left, or the graph, the line in orange again is the minimum storage that is theoretically recommended based on the calculation in the table on the right. And then the line in blue is your total storage volume right now between your 3 towers. So you have 2 towers that are 250,000 gallons, and then one that's 300,000 gallons. So altogether, it's that 0.8 million gallons there. And you'll notice that the recommended storage line in orange, in this case, has actually exceeded that that total storage that you have currently. But we're not recommending that you immediately pursue additional storage at this time, and that's for a few different reasons. With water storage, there's a couple competing constraints that we need to take into account. We want to provide enough storage volume that you can fight a fire during the summer, during max day demand. But we also don't want there to be so much storage that the water in the system is becoming stagnant, because you can start to lose your chlorine residual, and then you could get bacteria growing in the system. Or you can have, in the winter, the water can slowly decrease in temperature, and then you could start freezing in your towers, and that, that might break or damage some of your coatings or equipment. So we kind of need to strike a balance there between providing enough storage for firefighting during max day demands, while also not having a bunch of stagnant water, which is why the middle tower is taken out of service in the winter when the water demands are lower, so that you can have more turnover in your system and in your towers. And then in the table there on the right for the 2040 calculation, we're only projecting a need for another 125,000 gallons of storage, and that additional need relative to the total storage that you have is relatively small. If you were to add another storage facility, it would probably be at least as large as some of your existing towers. So it'd be at least like 250 or 300,000 gallons. And so that 125,000 gallons isn't, significant enough on the scale of the system that there's a pressing need to expand your storage at this time. So we aren't recommending more storage at this time in the plan, but we do recommend that you revisit this storage analysis around 2030, sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, based on the growth that has occurred in that time.
So with the storage of 25 or 250,000 on 2 of the tanks and 300 on the other, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we store. What is the capacity of those towers?
That would be full.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me rephrase the
We
question.
run probably on a well shot off. I think we're probably 90% full. We run them just about full. Summertime we have to get closer to probably a little more than that, but we're not 100% full. We keep down a few feet in the tower.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was looking for. If we could capability, it's 300 and keep it at 250, or is it 250?
And then we could, I guess, run them right to the top. Just haven't.
So in doing that, if we got in a pinch with that 125, that we'd have a safe gate to combat if we wanted to push it down.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's reasonable to run them a little bit lower than absolutely full, because with those SCADA controls, if you had a little bit of lag time with the well turning off, you could easily start overflowing, and then you'd be losing or wasting water. And one other fine point I should mention on the analysis there on the right is the firefighting flow that we're assuming, which is 3,500 gallons per minute, is quite a bit larger than your maximum day demand, which is about 1,000 gallons per minute. And so that the fire flow here in this calculation is having an outsized impact on the result of the calculation compared to the size of your system. And that's pretty common for systems of your size. And so we just have to take the result of this calculation with a grain of salt.
Sure. That's good information.
So next we'll get into some of the proposed improvements here. And so this map that you'll see in the plan shows the proposed trunk water mains. Because you don't need any new wells or treatment plants or towers, the only new facilities really in the system would be these trunk water mains. And we've laid out sort of a conceptual network of what these trunk water main loops would look like along the main development corridors. Because of the Rum River and the airport, the main development corridors seem to extend mostly in the cardinal directions. And so on the map there, you'll see some water main loops going in each of those directions. And most of them are 12-inch diameter with some 16-inch diameter at key locations. And then I did want to touch briefly on some of the computer modeling that we did as part of this study. Last summer we went out in the field here and we did some hydrant flow testing, and then used the results of that hydrant flow testing to calibrate your computer model of your water distribution system. So we take readings on pressure and fire flow, and then we adjust the settings in the model so that it's agreeing with what we observed out in real life. And these maps here show the available fire flows in the system. So if you opened up a hydrant, how much water is going to come out to fight a fire. And so these available fire flow contours, the one on the left is for existing conditions, and then the one on the right is for the proposed 2040 conditions. So you can see on the left, the areas in green all have more than that 3,500 gallons per minute of available fire flow. And then the areas in yellow and orange have incrementally less fire flow or available fire flow. And then the areas in red were below 1,500 gallons per minute. And the needed fire flows for residential areas can actually fall in that red area. They vary from 500 to 1,500 gallons per minute. So most of those, even though some of those areas are red, the amount of fire flow that you can get there is acceptable because they are residential areas where the homes are spaced out far enough apart. There are just a couple isolated areas where we identified some additional looping that you can put in, which will improve those fire flows. Usually that happens like at a small diameter water main or at a dead end water main. But the figure on the right there shows you with those future trunk water main extensions, and then also with a couple small improvements within the system, that we can get most of the system up into that above that 3,500 gallon per minute range.
So with the maps being different, what are we actually looking at? If you just look at it without any detail, the right map is more contained, where the left, seems a little split up, but we're looking at different maps. Yeah,
the map on the left, that's more of just a effect of my formatting of the maps than it is the data itself. So the one on the left, I cropped the contours just to your existing service area. So the gaps that you see there I wouldn't read too much into that. The one on the right, it's taking that entire ultimate service area boundary.
So the one on the right is indeed much larger than what it appears.
Yep.
Compared to the left.
The ultimate service area that we studied here is allowing, or it's providing more area for development than the population that we expect to see in that time frame. So we wanted to analyze a larger area and make that area available for development, or at least know what water improvements would need to be made there, to allow some flexibility. So it's quite a bit broader.
So we discussed capacity and usage. With the water treatment, Scott, does that tie into that same calculation of the water treatment and availability?
We have extra capacity currently on the treatment side.
Okay, does that take you to equalizing these charts to the same criteria, so we're not short at all?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're sitting okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it's there, and then if it's a couple of red areas, that's primarily that lower flow, primarily because they're not looping in there.
Yeah, those are the areas where, you know, if you,
Get in.
yeah, if you opened a hydrant that's out at the end of a dead end or connected to a small diameter water main, you would see less than 1,500 gallons per minute. But I think in all cases, it was still above 1,000 gallons per minute. It was in between 1,000 and 1,500 gallons per minute, which,
Thinking of what the golf club was going to put in that new facility, and we were talking about expanding, is that?
That would be that would have actually corrected that on the right hand, on the left map on the right hand side, that one,
That would have corrected.
that area there, that would have taken care of that area.
mhm.
And that hasn't happened.
Correct.
Isn't going to probably lost some place
Mm-hmm.
that they have right now.
Yeah, they didn't know them.
And now that we have this computer model updated and calibrated, you know, it's available as a tool going forward here. If there's any of these hypothetical scenarios, you know, looping that you want to explore, we can easily run and see what kind of modeling results we would predict under those conditions.
That's really good information, and the comfort that you get from it, that we're protected.
Mm-hmm. So finally, here I included the summary of proposed improvements that you'll see in the report. And you know, since there aren't any new wells or treatment plants or towers, some of the main items here are those trunk water main extensions, and then also just ongoing regular rehabilitation and replacement of the existing water distribution system. And we assume that would, to the greatest extent possible, be done in conjunction with the city's street projects, just to make those more cost effective. And then a couple of the other big ticket items further down there are the rehabs of your wells and your water treatment plants. So if you have any questions about some of the specifics of those, I'm happy to answer any of those or any other questions about the plan overall.
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks very much.
Thanks for your time. So with that being said, what we have in front of us is Amendment 2313. And this was approved last year, and we just heard the results of the study. Jack, do you have any further questions on that, or else we'll be looking at a motion for?
Yeah, all of the action.
For 2313?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I would second that. So we have a motion, you've got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. See, public notice wellhead protection plan part 2. Mr. Butcher, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as part of our wellhead protection plan process, we are required to do a formal public notice and public hearing on where we're at with the wellhead protection plan. So this meeting constitutes that requirement. I'm going to go through some background on the wellhead protection, where we're at, restate kind of the purpose so that everyone's kind of on the same page, and then next steps as we move forward with our wellhead protection plan. So really this is a public hearing to seek comments on our draft wellhead protection plan. So this is where we give an opportunity for the public to come in. Not seeing any audience members, and we'll move forward. So just as a recap, wellhead protection, it's about prevention and being proactive. It's to prevent contaminants that can adversely affect human health from entering a public water supply well and the aquifer supplying water to wells. It came in through the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act of 1986, as well as a Minnesota Groundwater Protection State rule in 1989. So it's really directed towards public water suppliers, and we are required under state statute to create a wellhead protection plan and put that plan into action. And again, this is about preventing contaminants from entering our drinking water resource. Wellhead protection plan amendment, we hired WSB to draft the Princeton Public Utility Wellhead Protection Plan Amendment Part 2. That rule required a 60-day local government units review be completed. We issued a notice to all LGUs on March 10th. 60 days from March 10th was May 9th. We did not receive any comments from any local units of government. The rule does require a public hearing, which is what we're doing today, and then the next step is to submit it for state agency review. A big part of the wellhead protection plan is the identification of a drinking water supply management area, or DWSMA. So when I use that acronym, that's what I'm talking about. We have 2 DWSMAs in place, which is on the screen in front of you. The black dashed line is the emergency response area, which is defined as a 1-year time of travel for a potential contaminant to be pulled into our distribution system. The blue dashed line is the wellhead protection area, which is a 10-year time of travel for a potential contaminant to be pulled into our distribution system. The red boundary line is our DWSMA, our drinking water supply management area, for which we try to communicate with folks about the importance of wellhead protection. The yellow shaded portion is what is defined as moderately vulnerable, and the orange shaded portion is what is defined as highly vulnerable under the wellhead protection rules. Vulnerability level dictates what is inventoried in the protection plan for potential contaminants. So for example, the different inventories for moderate that must be included are wells, solid waste management sites, class 5 wells, above ground storage tank greater than 1,100 gallons, underground storage tanks, spills, and storage preparation. And then in the high areas, it's all the moderate, everything on the moderate list, but it does include all above ground storage tanks, subsurface sewage treatment systems, feedlots, land application, as well as stormwater basins and outlets. So as part of our plan, WSB worked with us to identify these potential contaminant sources. And this is just a condensed list, just so you know. Through the survey, we've identified the following: 57 active wells, 59 septic systems, 9 active hazardous waste sites, 11 underground storage tanks, all inactive, 17 above ground storage tanks, 5 underground storage tanks, only 1 of which is active, 3 investigation cleanout sites, 3 active solid waste management sites, 1 active wastewater disposal site, and 2 spill sites, both of which are closed. So those are part of our PCSI. This map identifies the location of each of those sources. And this map is the wells that we know of, besides just our own. So it's really important that we identify what could potentially contaminate our drinking water. One step in protecting our water source. One source is identifying it. The next step is to identify how to prevent that contaminant from entering our system. The Wellhead Protection Plan identifies over 25 measures to implement in a 10-year time frame to help protect our drinking water. There is at least 1 measure for each type of potential contaminant. So a couple of important points to make. The Wellhead Protection Plan will be good for 10 years. It is our responsibility to implement the measures identified in the plan. And there are grants available through MDH that can help limit the cost of implementation. But the Wellhead Protection team, which is Scott and myself, also needs to be thoughtful in the identification of measures and take into consideration expenses and optimizing partnerships wherever we Partnerships would include collaborating with various local entities to promote our wellhead protection efforts. These include community group presentations. Scott and I did one for the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce. What was that, last fall?
Yeah.
Guest lectures at the school district, which Scott did last week, as well as presentations to City Council, which I've done periodically. We do several different social media activities about the importance of groundwater protection, letting people know when county's doing hazardous waste cleanups, things like that to help keep this stuff out of groundwater. So we use social media a lot to get to the general public. And then we do collaborate with local LGUs. We meet annually with city staff to discuss current initiatives and potential opportunities as it pertains to wellhead protection. We do that beginning of every year, January, February timeframe. So that's kind of the background on everything. In the memo, I did want to mention, again, we did go through a comment period. We received no comments. The next step is that a report is to be submitted to the Municipal Department of Health. MDH has their own 60-day comment period, at the conclusion of which MDH will issue a rule within 30 days. If the Department of Health, approves the plan, staff will schedule an implementation meeting notifying all local governmental units. That implementation meeting will cover measures that PPU will try to cover over the 10-year planning horizon. So the planning portion of our wellhead protection plan update should be completed by this fall. So with all of that being said, a draft of the report was in your packets. Staff is recommending that the commission accept the wellhead protection plan pending acceptance by the Minnesota Department of Health. The reason for phrasing it that way is then once the Department of Health approves the plan, then it just automatically goes in effect.
Right.
If the commission isn't comfortable with that, the commission could just recommend staff submit it to the Department of Health and then review after the Department of Health is done. But that was just, like I said, that would require another motion later down the road. So it's the commission's discretion on that.
I don't have any other questions, Jack, you? Okay, I would make a motion to accept the acceptance of the wellhead protection plan pending the acceptance of the Minnesota Department of Health. Is that we have a first and a second, and this is 23-14. First and a second, all those in favor say aye. 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 Yeah. D, South Water Tower washing bid selection. Mr. Schmidt.
It says part of the 2023 budget, we had included $10,000 for the washing of the South Tower. We got a couple bids on that, and they came in identical. So a pretty steady market in the tower washing. With the motor, we do a fair amount of work with KLM on other projects as far as cell phone stuff or the communications contracts and stuff like that, and inspections and stuff. We're thinking of staying with them on doing the washing portion of this one.
No, really not about money, so my opinion, but up to you guys, what you're comfortable with would be my choice. There in Woodbury, they're close, there's not that probably matters, the other ones in Lockfield is not, probably not relevant anymore.
Yeah, when I saw that your numbers exactly the same and then the recommendation, I had to assume that there was some working relationship history there.
Mm-hmm.
And, for the reason for, so in this case, the comfort level really to me is what determines, where you go. Is there on something like this, a letter that is sent out, communication to the person that does not receive the bid?
We always let them know.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't do a formal letter. Scott will just call.
But notification, I mean, they didn't do anything wrong, they're the same
Nope.
exact price,
And if
but,
they get next opportunity, they're more than welcome to pursue that.
but it's nice to see the closeness of each bid to don't feel comfortable that we're getting a fair price.
The other thing, I guess, their bid process here, looks like about 3 pages long, that it just go on with a little more detail in their bid, I guess. The bottom line is the thing. And again, what you guys are comfortable with, and then I'll move to, up the KLM bid for, washing, South Water Tower. For staff recommendation.
How often is this done? The washing?
It never gets dirty. It all depends on weather.
So,
I mean, every 3 years, average,
That's 6 or 7.
so it's well.
You wash it, then you paint it, then you wash it, then you paint it.
Okay, I'll second Jack's motion. So we have a first and a second on the acceptance of KLM water tower washing. Or-
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Far up with the north one, sort of this kind of work. That one actually is, but when I look at all 3 water towers, that kind of work looking for it. But nobody sees that.
Yeah, it is secluded. You know, I think a big part of it for us is, I mean, the South Water Tower is right on 160 there, so put a ditch out there. Then, is it the north one is next scheduled for major
Yes.
rehab? It was actually listed in WFP's recommendation.
But that needs more than probably just cleaning.
yeah, that one's due for a complete overhaul, paint and.
Right, so-
and, Blast and paint.
Really no sense in washing it right before you rehab it.
When is that scheduled, Scott, do you recall? Or?
Well, we don't have a schedule for it yet. WSB put 2025 in it. We do have KLM do our water tower inspections. Last I remember, we were thinking more of 2028.
I'm coming from the
2027.
question of a budgetary, if it's set in a budget someplace for future.
I don't know if we had it in the 5-year.
I believe we do.
It would be at the end of our 5-year cap plan. So it's not in a, since we only do budgets annually, it's not in the budget, but it is something we have on our radar.
Okay. That's really the concern.
That gets to be a little more pricey than they're talking paint.
Correct. Yeah, and it's kind of on the pending inspections, I guess.
Yeah, it's always.
It's kind of where we're going with it, is this,
Mhm.
as long as everything's looking good, we'll get the full life use out of it
Absolutely.
before we do rehab it.
And that's the one thing I would, not caution, WSB does really good work. But a lot of his numbers are based on engineering life. And we have phenomenal staff that take care of everything. And we're getting a lot more life out of our equipment than what you may see as a book value on it. So we're really trying to make sure that we replace stuff, you know, not too late. We don't want to run it into the ground, but we also don't want to replace it prematurely. So,
You don't want to be caught short.
right. So, you know, it is something that we do have inspections done periodically. I don't know if Commissioner remembers, we did some ROV work a year or two ago. Everything was checking out. So, that North Water rehab was initially planned to be, if not this year, like next year. But all the inspections keep indicating that it's solid. So we continue to monitor the situation and we'll put it in.
Thank you. All right, we have a first and a second on the motion, and I will ask the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed. That is 2315. Okay, E and F are going to be put on the next meeting for June. And Mr. Butcher, please have a representative from RBC Wealth Management, if that's at all possible. We could then go to G. That is the joint meeting with the City Council for Thursday, June 1st at 4:30 in the Princeton City Council chambers. Mr. Butcher, any comments or questions on it?
It is just that's what we, in talking with Michelle and talking with everybody, that seemed to work out for everyone. We just need to get it on our calendar, which requires a motion. So that's really all we're looking for here, is just a motion to have a joint meeting with the City Council on Thursday, June 1st at 4:30 p.m. in the chambers.
I'll make that motion.
So that's the same day as Glen Meadowcraft,
Correct.
but at 4:30. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
With that meeting, I guess does the commission wish to discuss topic at all?
Yeah, I would like to add that. I think it's the appropriate time, so it gives us enough time. June 1st is going to be here right around the corner. Next week in fact, huh? Yeah, we better discuss that.
Michelle and I talked, and we thought, given all the annexation work that's going on, that would be a good topic for the city council and the commission to get on the same page about, because that was really the primary topic staff was thinking about, but if there are other items that the commission wishes, we can put that on, and obviously, this is a joint meeting, so we can see what the city council thinks, and just make sure that we're all focused on the same things. But if there's items you want,
If there's some items that we wish to have, is the city going to also be making their list, and then we make a comprehensive list of 1, 2, 3, or?
well, the idea in the joint meeting is that we have the same agenda, so we would want to make sure that we're agreeing. So that's why we're not approving the agenda here for June.
No.
The idea is just.
I was just asking the question, we're creating our need or want list, and if they're going to do the same, out of that becomes one comprehensive.
I guess I would describe it from that extent, it's just more, very informal.
Okay, all right.
Now let's see where there's common issues, and let's deal with that. And in a joint meeting, obviously you don't want like hundreds of items on the ballot.
No, and that's why I said take the top 1, 2, 3.
Feedback.
Yeah, so I would agree with the statement earlier, which you had stated that with the annexation that's happening, that we make sure that the city and the PPU is on the same page. That if it favors one, it generally favors the other. But not to have any quick reactionary. A reactionary statement made out of context by somebody else creating an issue. I think we need to contact and communicate each other before other statements. I think we might be referring to, or I'm referring to, but I think the communication's gotten a whole lot better. And it's continuing to be, and the respect is there. So, but if Princeton's going to grow, then that communication has to be there with both sides, without fear of the reaction from a few people. And I think that's why we're all doing what we're doing, is the growth of Princeton is important to all of us. So that's one. I don't know if there's any other specific issues that we're struggling with, but if the meeting's next week, we should talk about it.
Communication. We went to a rather bad history here, and the very recent history is that is a leading problem with that, with positive. In my experience, I think about 20 years, local city government, different levels. One of the misconceptions that's still out there in the community is that we have two neighboring townships, quite honestly, don't like the city of Princeton. I'll just be blunt about it. Historically, they don't like the city. And they try to create this concept. The city goes out and land grabs and wants to take their townships away and that's the last, it's exactly the opposite. My history with the city is, to my knowledge, something behind the scenes somewhere. We've never reached out. Annexation comes to us on property owners. And then it's like, if that's not out, we don't annex every square acre if somebody wants to annex. It may not be beneficial to do it, might put a burden on the city we don't want. No. But it's out there, and it's created by two people. That doesn't happen. It does not happen. I don't know how you stop it. Couldn't be here.
So with that being said, maybe, you know, an item can be instead of creating or discussing a problem, maybe the question is turned over and we ask, how can we help you? And they ask, how can we help you? You know, just how do we better this train that we're on with the improvements? So where do we see the weaknesses with communication, and what are the other issues that would create this list? We may not be aware of the commission or the PPU, an issue that the city may have, or vice versa. I don't know if that's getting too technical for that meeting, but it has gotten a lot better.
Well, that would be certainly a part of it, once you get into a serious, you know, we have to expand our services.
Right.
So we have the first option to do that here. Like, in city annexes, like with the industrial park, we have, in statute, or we have a.
We are able to serve anything that's
Well, it doesn't have to be for anything. I mean, that's the evidence with the Gulf industrial park. You know, we never took the electricity down there
yeah, it's up, yeah, I mean,
at that time.
you have the right if you want to exercise.
But I guess what I'm gonna go.
Let me help you by making this statement that I do recall, and I agree 100%, Mr. Butcher, when you said where the city goes, we will go. And that helps in many ways, because if the developer that's coming to Princeton isn't aware of that commitment by PPU, they don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to plan. So I think that's a very strong commitment from this commission and PPU to the city that your territory is our territory, and we're letting you know that, and you're letting us know that. Again, working together. That's how I feel.
Well, and the point of the joint meetings for commission to have that.
But that would be a subject matter.
That covered under the topic of annexation.
That's, yeah, it could be A, B, C, D of that topic, so sure.
Okay.
Do that, Jerry, when you're waiting.
No, it's right here. It won't. It, you know, that has to do with our knowledge. You know, I can't think of that.
It has to do with that, let's forget it. I'm glad you did.
I'll make a point that something went on at that time, I can't remember what it was.
All right, well, we can talk about it maybe at the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no further business, then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone.